Patch 4.0.3 is here and it's got some very interesting fixes, one that is pretty seismic when it comes to combat. So let's jump in and let's talk about it. I just want to give a little shout out, if that even makes sense, to a channel that has 444,000 subscribers, but the devs themselves and New World themselves have actually started to do patch note breakdowns. Now, they basically just read the patch notes. Of course, they're not going to give you insights to like the impact of these changes on a big level, but if you want to go and check them out, feel free, Try to put me out of a job though, the little sausages. Nah, that's fine. Let's have a look at the patch itself. It's coming tonight if you're in the West Coast, and first thing tomorrow if you're in EU. It's 11 PM or 7 AM UTC. Then they show off the video, which I just mentioned. And then there is a little bit of a bonus community Q&A. And the question is about server merges. So there are some server merges coming this week. There's not that many. And basically they talk about the issue that they have with server sizes. There were some people who wanted to stay on a small server because they can get into wars. But the problem is, for those people who don't want to be on a small server, if you're stuck on that server because you don't want to pay or what have you, then you can't do M3s, M2s, etc. because that wasn't a cross-server feature, and you wouldn't be able to do arenas because that's not coming. Well, we don't know when that's coming. So they say the cross-world features are going to reduce the urgency, and they sort of want to have the different players being able to do like smaller or mid-tier size worlds, as they say. The problem is, I honestly think that the main issue here is the design of the game. Not just cross-server, but I think was typically just a bad feature that needs sort of like a massive overhaul. And, as they actually also address, I actually think probably about the same about elite chess runs, but we'll not get into that here. I'm going to go through most of the notes, but the main one here that I really want to talk about is this one right here, where they say they fixed an issue that prevented elemental conversion gems on weapons with a PvE/PvP damage split from applying the damage equally. Now, this is going to fix Boltcaster, so I assume they will re-enable Boltcaster, but it's also going to dramatically nerf basically musket and bow. A lot of the times you're splitting your damage 50-50 and then getting the 150 int bonus. That's not going away, but you're going to have some significant percentage damage dropped. And it's interesting that they're not therefore buffing the musket or the bow. They're just going to leave it as a bit of a nerf. That could really change ranged, and it could really change outpost rush. So I'm very intrigued how this will play out. I sort of expected that they would buff it to make up for this change, but I don't see that in these notes. They fixed an issue when transferring between worlds. I can't really speak about it, never happened to me, but obviously if you were having that issue, I'm sure it was a pain in the backside. There's some crashes when you enter and leave expeditions. Fair enough. Again, I've actually not been doing expeditions lately because sort of have no real reason to do them, therefore I'm not doing them. I'm just doing outpost rushes and arenas and gathering. And then the next one is basically making some content easier, specifically the season 4. So I don't know how you say his name, Saito, he's basically one of the first soul trials. I think he might actually be the second one, but maybe the first, can't remember. He's having his health reduced, his damage dealt reduced by 60%. They're just making everything easier, basically. It was a little bit challenging. It wasn't really challenging if you were like a hardcore player or anything like that, but if you come into the game, you're new, and you're leveling through everything, you might not have all of the high gears go, and you might really struggle. I guess it sort of depends on who this content is really aimed at. For me, it probably is casual content, so I think making it easier is fair enough. I think hard content should be something else. This next one, the ice cold killer task in the journey tab to kill 150 players in PvP to count more than one kill if other players assisted with the elimination. That's happening for like artifacts and stuff like that, and I don't think they should fix it. So I don't know exactly what this task is, but I personally just leave it the way that it is. I think it sort of makes sense. Make them a little bit easier. Literally have no qualms with it. The next one is something that I haven't actually seen done, and I wasn't doing it myself, but they've added some transition frames when cancelling Rain of Arrows because there was an exploit. Effectively, you could animation cancel it, I think, which was basically get the full Rain of Arrows damage and the ability off without actually having the full animation. So they've basically tried to address that by adding in some frames that I'm guessing are mandatory. Good, fair enough. I never really thought it was like that broken. I don't see it that much in Outpost Rush, but it makes sense. Now this next one, I don't know if I've just imagined this or if I've just never checked. So a lot of people come into my chat when I'm streaming and they say, hey, basically when I teleport or something like that, I'm losing my magnify stats, and I'm always like, oh mate, you just probably need to log out and log back in and hope. But I'm wondering, to me, if this is happening to me, and sometimes I just don't realize it. Because if I go into an outpost rush, not every time am I checking my attributes, and sometimes I just think I'm a little bit weaker than normal, and I'm sort of wondering if that's because my magnify stats are just getting wrecked, or I could just be bad, which, to be fair, is also true. But this, I've heard this, I think ever since Magnify even came into it, so probably from season 3. The next one I don't really understand. Fixed an issue that prevented blocking from cancelling at heavy attack charges. So if you were doing a heavy attack and then blocking, it wasn't stopping the attack. Obviously, there's a point at which when you do an attack that you're supposed to be able to stop it by either dodging, blocking, or what have you, right? That's obviously not happening with some heavy attacks. I don't know why. I've not really been playing Serenity or anything recently, so I've not really felt this one. Then we go on to the one with the elemental conversion, which for me really is the big combat one. Outpost Rush is going to get very spicy tomorrow. Honestly, I'm really looking forward to it. Although Boltcaster's probably back. It doesn't actually address Boltcaster, but I'm assuming it'll be back. The next one, if you want a little tip on the economy maybe, and you know, this is very interesting because we're getting a complete trade skill rework, is this. To set the groundwork for cooking trade skill changes coming next season, legendary fish will now require a higher luck stat to catch. Now, I don't want to get my hopes up here, but in the next season, we're getting a complete cooking trade skill overhaul, or, well, maybe not overhaul, but we're getting some changes, hopefully some sizable changes. A lot of the crafting when it comes to cooking is just sort of like get the food and, you know, craft it and call it a day kind of thing, and you just craft hearty meals or artisan flatbreads or something like that. So, I mean, I'd welcome any changes there. You might want to buy some legendary fish because it might go up. You have no idea how much it will go up though, and by the time you've seen this, it's probably already up, so I wouldn't bother. But maybe keep any that you do get if you are a fisherman or woman. Some mobs were spawning underground, they've fixed that. Some lasers were damaging you even though you couldn't see them. Lols. Wing shoes is pretty much back. I don't think they actually mentioned Boltcaster here, but wing shoes had an issue where you just had like, you could get permanent haste basically, so they disabled that. That's back. Although I think they don't actually say that it's back, they just say they fixed that issue. I'm guessing both the wing shoes and Boltcaster will be back. Fixed an issue with the quest. I don't know this one. I don't know the names of the quest, but a lot of the times it's like the MSQ can't be completed because there's a lot of people in a lot of different states and they just get stuck. So hopefully that fixes whatever issue you were having if you're having one. They fixed the Loth on the glacial turn to show the right coordinates. I don't think I ever check the map when I'm in the dungeon, so I don't think that really matters too much to me. This is sort of the same thing with the MSQ, except if you were sort of halfway through season 1, then you can now do it. An interesting one here, they fixed an issue that allowed you to skip some of the soul trials. I don't know like what was the cause for that. They say if either quest was reset after completion, how can you skip it if you've already completed it? I don't follow it, but fair enough. And then this one is quite a huge one, and if I'm honest, quite a sad one. So a lot of people are enjoying the influence races. For me, I think world PvP ends up being a bit zergy and just numbers often win. I know a lot of people say, skill and stuff like that and a coordinated group. The reality is that generally, on average, because an average makes sense, that one amount of people is as skilled and as coordinated as another, and then the numbers have a big impact on that. But anyway, the point here is they can't fix some of the performance issues, so they're just going to reduce the amount of people who can participate. So if you're PvP flagged and you're going to need these influence towers and you're going to need these forts, then you're going to have less people in there. I'm not sure what the number is right now. I think they might have said 50, or they may have said 100. I can't really remember. They did say in one of the dev videos at some point, but they're reducing the number. They don't tell us to how many, so it could be 5. Obviously, it's not going to be 5, but they don't say how many, and then they're going to monitor the performance. It's a little bit sad, but it definitely makes sense. They've tried a couple of different things here. They tried doing multiple influence races at the same time. That obviously didn't work for different reasons. And now they're just going to be like, well, we can't get that many people in one space, so we're just not going to do that. I'm hoping that when they do the combat rework, that was supposed to be in this PTR, by the way, but let's not talk about that here. Oh, forget it, I will talk about it. One of the devs said, I think in Discord, that there'll be combat rework changes in a PTR in the next coming weeks. Well, that was basically 5 weeks ago, and it wasn't on the PTR for the cross group finder, so I don't know when that's coming on the PTR. Probably in maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks when we get season 5 on the PTR. But I'm hoping that maybe that combat rework is also going to, you know, improve performance, and then maybe we can get a lot more people in a small area. Maybe. I'm hopeful. Sort of. But this is big. If you enjoy the influence races, this could be huge basically, and probably negative, maybe. But then if you're having poor performance, maybe not negative. I don't know. We'll see. Then basically they fixed an issue where some people were seeing some medley fur quests and it was breaking stuff for people. Bad times. So yeah, the two big ones, if we're honest, really is the elemental conversion gems, because that's just huge to ranged, honestly. Like bow and musket, without any additional changes here, have just got a straight up nerf. Granted, it's a fix, but it is a nerf at the same time. It's going to make them worse. Granted, it's supposed to be a fix, but the end result is that they're not going to be as strong. And it applies to the blunderbuss as well, actually, but I think maybe a little bit less though. Although does it? Because a lot of people run fire gems. Anyway, whatever. Those three, they're getting wrecked. We'll see how strong they are. Very much looking forward to Outpost Rush. I'm going to whack on my medium gear and see if I can survive. Should be fun. And then the next one is the influence races. It's a bit of a shame when something effectively gets made worse because of performance, but overall that might be a better experience than just having a complete lag fest. Some of you might have supercomputers and be like, well, I don't care, but you know, other people don't. And also, I can't believe they're gunning for my job. The patch note breakdowns, like what do they think they're doing? Those little sausages. Unbelievable. I'll have to think of some new content apart from just reading some patch notes. I mean, what am I going to do with myself? I'm beside myself. I should have done it like this and said, I'm beside myself. Look, I'm a dad. I'm allowed to do this. Big shout out to my Patreons. If you want to support me, then that's the best way to do it. And you can't see it, but Twitch will be on the screen somewhere, I hope. Or not, because I'm not sure I have access to that feature yet. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you have a beautiful day. Goodbye.